Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Stone Reform podcast series. Today we're very excited to announce that we are launching the Stone Design Guide, and I'm joined by Tom Phillips today. How are you doing, Tom?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Are you excited about the release of the
We are excited to release this design guide to the public and to the professionals in the industry.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a really useful design guide for professionals, as Tom said. Also for people involved with quarries, people who want to design with stone, and people who want to specify stone for their projects. So yeah, the design guide is split into these 3 sections. Section 1 being the quarry section, section 2 being the rules for locating stone source, and section 3, which Tom's going to talk about, which is the designing with stone. So Section 1 looks at different types of quarries, from sedimentary to igneous quarries, gives guidance initially on sort of health and safety, and how to manage silt. Then also it goes into the different types of quarries that we have. So looking at sand quarries and how we can use sand quarries in a better way than they already are. And also looking at sedimentary and igneous. And these design guide pages look at both how you manage a quarry during the process of quarrying, and also the repurposing of it afterwards. So paying particular attention to biodiversity. Is there anything that you want to point out on those, Tom, and what particular bits we've looked at in terms of biodiversity?
Yeah, I think a good point to look at is how can we make these quarries into not habitable spaces, but places that people can visit. At the minute, quarries are places that are only used to extract stone, and the public is kept quite far away from these quarries. There's not much use for much point for the public to go there. However, if we repurpose the quarries, then we can draw the public in, we can make attractions into these quarries, and make them places that people want to go to.
So I think it's a really sensitive approach to these quarries, and just gets everyone thinking about how we can create spaces that are better for the environment and better for people as well.
For the biodiversity, there's issues with the quarries that when they're initially planning the quarries, there's a lot of public opposition to quarries, as Toby mentioned, with the biodiversity, where the quarries affect local fauna and flora, and sort of negatively affects the environment that way.
I think something else that the design guide is looking into is the repurposing of cement plants. So in a world where concrete has stopped, as you can see on our website, I think looking at how we could repurpose these plants, and the programs within those that could be used for stone use, is something that Design Guide also looks into. So then, looking into section 2 of the Design Guide, the rationale behind the selection of stone type has been delved into, and the guidance given initially looks at building typology, and this is all in order as well. So initially looking at building typology, then looking at the local character of the place where the building is being designed, so looking at if there is existing stone used within the context of the building, and then looking at proximity, so the closest quarries to the building site, and we've also given a page advising using GIS and how to use GIS to get the data for the closest quarry, and more information on this can be seen on the website, and also further on the YouTube channel through a tutorial. And lastly, in terms of the rationale behind selecting, we've also acknowledged that cost is a factor within this. We think it should be the last selection of this, but obviously if the project is over budget, and way beyond the budget, then prioritising stone sources that are lower in cost is something that should be considered. So then moving on to section 3 of the design guide, we've been working a lot on different typologies and different heights. So Tom, would you like to kind of talk through each of those typologies, the heights that they're at, and what we're advising our structures to be?
Yeah, we looked at a series of building typologies, the first one being low-rise. Through research we found that we could swap clay bricks for stone bricks, which would be the ideal solution, as well as swapping the concrete blocks on the internal skin with limestone blocks instead. These structures are high in fire resistance. We don't have to add things like plasterboard, so you could leave the limestone block as a finished material as well. Another aspect is that we're looking to take out as much concrete from this building as possible, so we're coming up with stone foundations, as well as stone slabs at the ground floor.
Interesting. So quite a similar typology of building that is already known to builders and designers, but swapping out similar materials for stone materials.
That's it. Yeah, it's almost a like for like, swapping clay and concrete with actual stone instead. So instead of going through a process of having to use kilns and for clay and having to mix a lot of additives to make concrete, we're actually extracting stone straight from the ground and transporting it straight to our buildings, essentially.
Brilliant.
We came up with another low rise as well, which is another option, and we come up with this option if cost and locality of stone is difficult. So instead of having the limestone blocks, we advise to use SIPS panels for the internal skin instead. And then we looked at the medium rise. These buildings ideally are between 3 and 12 stories, and we are taking lessons from Armin Taha's group work. The exoskeleton can be made out of sedimentary stone, which could be limestone or sandstone, and it's a load-bearing structure consisting of post and lintel stone. And as I mentioned, it's an exoskeleton, so it connects to the upper floors through a steel ring beam. For this particular typology, we advise use CLT, and the CLT will span to a central stone core.
Brilliant. I know you've also then looked at higher typology buildings, so what materials are involved in this, and is it much different to the mid-rise buildings that you've looked at?
The exoskeleton would be similar in terms of its form. This building can reach 8 to 30 stories, but instead of using sedimentary stone, we're looking at using igneous.
And what's the reason behind?
It's a lot stronger. It's a lot stronger than sedimentary stone, and it also has higher fire-resistant properties than the sedimentary stones.
So is that the basis behind it being able to reach a higher height?
That's it. Yeah. Fire safety is something we looked at and is quite important to us, or very important to us, especially looking at disasters like Grenfell. Selecting materials that are higher in fire resistance are a lot more preferable. So with the higher rise typology, it's the same idea as the mid-rise, except for the upper floors we're exchanging the CLT floor panels for stone beams instead. These allow for larger spans, up to 14.5 metres, and again it reaches to a stone core in the centre of the building. And then finally we came up with a chalet plan building. This building is suitable for warehouses and aircraft hangars. We're saying that this building has a maximum height of 15 metres and has a span larger than 15 metres as well. Again, it's an exoskeleton made out of igneous, and instead of having the stone beams for the upper floors, we're proposing to have pre-tensioned stone trusses to span the length of the building.
Interesting. So would you be able to explain what you mean by a pre-tensioned stone truss?
Yeah, so essentially they are blocks of stone that are fixed together through using steel reinforcement that are cut through each stone and tightened, and then adding resin into the holes forms a structural component essentially.
And these, how do these perform in tension? Are these quite strong?
Yeah, these are much stronger in tension than using the stone beams.
Interesting. I'm guessing that's the reason for using them for this shallow plan.
That's it. They allow much larger spans.
Brilliant. Yeah, really interesting to see the different typologies and how designers can use those within their buildings. So that's everything on the typology section. If you want more information on these, on the design guide, it's available on the website as well as linked through the Instagram account of stone_reform. And we hope that designers will find this guide useful and exciting to use for future in their buildings. Thanks for speaking today, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Toby.
And we'll see you soon.